Welcome back. You're watching 101. We're speaking with renowned filmmaker Deepa Mehta. Now, you're best known, arguably, for your trilogy, Elements trilogy, the films Fire, Earth and Water. Now, in terms of when you look back over the years, then apart from those still were defining films. I mean, they put your name very much on the map. What do you feel were the other moments that really stuck out in your mind in terms of being a filmmaker?
I think that it's an absurd moment. It was my first feature, Sam and Me, and I was really terrified of coming to set and directing. You know, I hadn't directed a feature in my life. I mean, and my ex-husband had given me a viewfinder, and I had it on my neck because that's what I felt directors should wear, a viewfinder.
Do you have the megaphone as well?
Exactly. I mean, a bit later. I mean, if it was the 50s, I would have had a megaphone, but I had the viewfinder. And I came, and Guy Defoe, who was a cinematographer, and everybody sort of, and I picked up the viewfinder because that's what directors are supposed to do. And I was going like this, and I said, "Okay, Guy, I have the shot now. Come and look at it." And he came and he looked at it and he said, "Deepa, you've got the settings on 16mm and we're shooting on 35." So that was a real defining moment for me to realize that this is absurd. So I took off the viewfinder and he said, this is a lesson you mustn't forget. This is a close-up, this is a medium shot, and this is a long shot. And that's all you have to remember. You don't need any gadgets. So but I got free of technology, and I could focus on what I care for, which is performances in the heart of the film. I
wonder, you directed a couple of episodes of George Lucas's television series, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, in the mid-90s. Now, how did that compare, doing television, for example, with the big screen? Was there any kind of limitation with it?
In fact, the budget for one Indiana Jones was probably double the budget of Fire, for example. Wow. So it wasn't just the money. I mean, it came with bells and whistles again. You know, I could have the crane if I wanted to. I could have the Steadicam, but television is definitely a producer's arena.
Are the rules different?
Yes, they're dictated by the producer, especially in a series, because they go from, they have to be consistent. One episode has to be slightly consistent with the others. So it was pretty much George Lucas's baby. But I had a ball doing it because they're really good people.
Who have been your mentors in life?
I think mentors. I mean, I don't know if I have any. I mean, there have been people that I've been really inspired by. Rick McCallum, who was the producer of George Lucas on Indiana Jones, and because it was so early on in my career, what he said and what he did and his behavior as a producer, people say have really spoiled me for life. He was a producer who was hands-on, who would not dictate things but be there for the crew, and passing on bottles of water because he thought people were hot and sweaty. He was a really good guy.
The film's called Fire, for example. If you have a director doing Fire, you want it.
You want all that. But, inspirational people, I mean, whose films I admire. I mean, there's, of course, Satyajit Ray. Everything that he's done has moved me great. I guess the great humanitarian filmmakers, Ozu, De Sica.
I was wondering, with a lot of people say actors are made or can be made or broken by the director. In fact, actors say it's the director who really bring the best out of me. How fussy are you about the actors you have in your films?
Extremely fussy. Because I write my own scripts, by the time I finish writing a script, I actually put it away for about a week and then put on my director's hat and take off my writer's hat. And that's the period where I start seeing the image of the kind of actors I would like to portray my characters. And it is of vital importance. And to this date, I cast all my own main leads myself. I don't use a casting director.
Do you have to connect with them? I mean, does there have to be an emotional connection as a director to get the best out of them, to instill your character?
I think so, but I don't want to be their friend, because I think that there has to be that line. I sort of end up by being, I feel, sort of a cross between their therapist and their mother, which is much better than being their friend.
Usually really. Mothers who end up sending them to therapists.
I know.
But in terms of the films that you've done, though, it's always hard to pick your baby, so to speak, but which have you enjoyed the most? I know you saw Fire as a sort of very interesting film to develop you, but which has been your favourite one?
Probably Heaven on Earth. because I had the freedom to experiment with sort of different narratives and the whole film is shot handheld, and it's slightly experimental and using magic realism to talk about a subject, domestic violence, which is very difficult. So it was a challenge, and that's why I like Heaven on Earth. It was a difficult film to make, and the fact that I think I pulled it off makes me feel great.
सच्ची कामना विच इतनी ताकत होती है कि वो इंसानी रूप धार के साडी जिंदगी विच दाखल हो जाए।
नरक भला स्वर्ग तो इत्थे मिले ना आदर मान।
Now, I know, as we talked about being outside the Hollywoods and the Bollywoods, being clear of the woods, so to speak, but is it important to get the accolades, to get the awards, to get the recognition in order to continue your craft? How important is that recognition to you?
You have to be a saint if you say that you aren't. It doesn't help, or if you don't get the awards or the critical acclaim or the box office. I mean, because film is expensive. And in order to pursue your craft, you can't just do it and say, okay, I'm going to hold up. All my last 5 novels that I've sent to all the publishers have been rejected, but I will keep on writing because it's just you and the pen and your ideas. Film, you need, it's pretty much collaborative. I mean, and it's expensive.
Are you fairly selective about what you watch as a viewer, as a member of the audience, cinema goer, or are you fairly open-minded about what you see?
Oh, I love horror films, I love Bollywood films. I pretty much like all cinema. I mean, so I don't know what that makes me, but...
Can you watch it without a director's eye, without picking it apart?
Absolutely. Because, I mean, if anything else, I'm totally empathetic to a director. So now, I used to do that earlier. I used to come out of a movie hall and say, oh my God, that was a mess. It was nice, but it was a mess. If somebody says that about my film, I'd have a fit. So I've stopped saying that completely, and I'm trying to be positive about what I like.
What do you see as the main pros and the main cons of your job?
The main pros, I think, are the first screening of your film after it's complete, because it takes about 2 years to actually finish a film, from the writing process and working, and then you see the performances come to life, the characters that you'd imagined while you were sitting and writing your script on a kitchen table on a cold and snowy day in Toronto are now in Chandigarh or in India, and they have flesh and they have bones and they move and they keep quiet and they pause, and it hits the spot. I mean, this feeling is like magic.
And then the negative side?
When the films don't do well, it's terrible. And it happens.
Do you handle criticism well?
I try to. I mean, I try and be I guess, logical about why, the role of critics in our lives, and but it takes. I mean, I get disturbed by negative criticism to this day, and but I don't know how not to, unless I stop reading the bad reviews. But then I'll have to stop reading the good reviews, which make me feel good. So I figure it's all, and I heard there's a wonderful story which made it much easier to handle critics, which was, what's the definition of a critic? And a critic is a person who walks in the battlefield after the battle is over and shoots the wounded. And I said, I get it.
That's very true, I think. Well, listen, if you were going to be remembered a certain way, if you had a legacy, what would you want it to be?
I hope it's a humanist filmmaker and not as a controversial film one. I mean, I really detest the label controversial. I feel it sort of marginalizes the story of my films, the characters in my film, and it all becomes about the controversy. And to this date, I don't know how I got it.
Well, Deepa Mehta, I wish you a lot of luck. Thank you for talking.
Thank you so much, Riz.
Thank you.
Thanks.